what you're saying is when you sign up for buying a small business, you shouldn't look at it as a temporary role you're playing. You should look at it as a forever role. You are the owner, which should be akin to you are the primary operator.
Right. And I'm sure at some scale that changes, but that scale is like quite a ways away. It's not like a couple years away. And like I've definitely spoken to some searchers turned operators who have gotten there faster than I have for sure. But I think there's something to do with also just kind of how much you want the business to operate a way you want it to. It just requires you to be that much more involved. All right. Welcome to The Intentional Owner. Thanks for the flexibility, Sam, as my day sort of collapsed around me a little bit, but I appreciate it.
Oh, wow. What happened? Tell us more.
I mean, it's sort of designed chaos in that I knew things wouldn't go that smoothly today, but I didn't know in what way or when. And so we have a couple big jobs going this week. We're doing 2 large removals for a university here in Seattle. And so that just like the coordination involved in that, like between the university and closing part of campus. And then, they have this like loop road that we can, drive our vehicles onto, but it's sort of for show. And so they actually don't want vehicles on it without like tarp and plywood down. So we had to like tarp and plywood this whole loop road, which, I don't know, it's probably like 500 to 700 feet of pavement.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a lot because the tree's at the end of the loop. And so yesterday we subbed in a crane with a crane operator to take out a big tree that, I think we really thought we'd have it down by like 2 or 3 p.m. and we really had it down by like 5 p.m. And yeah. So on our activity competition, I don't know if this is fair or not. You can make a judgment call, but I literally didn't open my laptop yesterday. Not one time during the day. And I put in, because then I was at the job site kind of like doing coordination, and then I left and did one bid and then came back. So I put in like 6 45-minute working calls, which I think is fair.
Wow, that's pretty good. Okay,
yeah,
that's fine.
And at the back half of the day, once we were like, oh, we're way behind, I went and joined the crew itself and was like, I did like an hour or so of like actual tree work, which
means you got 20,000 steps yesterday.
Yeah, I ended up at like 14,000. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so I added a cardio point and a little bit of lifting point because I was moving some wood.
Dang, so you got like 12 points yesterday.
Yeah, it was a good day. I mean, I got to catch up, man. You're still just crushing me. It's crazy. I kept thinking that you're going to peter out, and I feel like my like bet isn't that bet isn't working.
All summer I've been working on just being consistent.
That's
that, and I just know that I cannot fly to Seattle to play golf. I need you to fly here to play golf.
So anyway, so that was the issue one. It was just coordination. But then today we had a skid steer set up to basically start moving wood. But I didn't realize that the skid steer only comes with a bucket attachment, whereas we really need a grapple attachment. And so like the guys call me from the job site being like, what do you want us to do with this? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just an office guy. So we're doing firewood. So then luckily, like I called a buddy, like another tree owner. He has an excavator with a grapple attachment. So he's going to come out tomorrow and basically bail me out on this. And I'll pay him for that. And we had another like friend of a friend who wanted a lot of the big wood to like mill. So he came out with 2 trailers yesterday, and we crane picked the wood straight into his trailer.
And did he pay you for that, or did you pay him?
No,
for that?
we just the deal is like he'll make us a nice office table with one of the slabs. And so that's cool. A good trade.
Yeah.
But that was like that last pick was right around 10,000 pounds.
Oh my goodness!
Like in one piece of wood.
And what would you have done with that otherwise? Taken it to a dump, or were they burn it or something?
Yeah, no, like we would have, I mean, I don't know. We wouldn't have had a good game plan. Like this was the plan.
Yeah. I looked at a business a long, long time ago that would, it was a dump site
Yep.
where landscapers, tree removers would all come dump their stuff. They would mulch it
Yep.
and they would charge for the dump fees
Yep.
and then mulch it and sell the mulch. So like in a
I've
theory,
thought
negative
about
cost
it.
of
The
goods
problem
sold.
is land here is so expensive, right? Like it doesn't work well in a city like Seattle. Plus the tub grinder you would need to make the mulch, like that capex setup, setting aside the land, the capex is like 500K at a minimum.
Oh my
Um,
God. Okay.
and so
Yeah.
and like that stuff will still break. But anyways, so that was this morning, and then one of our other crews was out at a job with some big removals also, and that whole job had been priced because it was under construction. Like this house was doing a big renovation, and so the idea was like we could just bomb these trees, like take 40-foot tops. Like these are like 90 to 100-foot tall trees, and there's four of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
But it turns out between when we gave the bid and today, they've done all their landscaping. They've put in a chicken coop. They've put in like there's like an RV. And it's like, okay, wait, what? This is like a totally different job now. And so sort of we had to, the client was understanding. They didn't realize that would change the job scope for us, which, I don't know. Like, I guess that's just one of those things you don't think about as a homeowner. Um,
Can I probe a little bit?
yeah.
I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
But you either wrote a newsletter or an investor update that said the flywheel was starting to spin and that your optimism was increasingly high. And sort of by implication, you were going to be able to start working on the business in a way that allows it to start hitting some scale. What
Yeah, I think
happened to get you
I
back in
probably
the business?
no, you're right, because I wrote that in an investor update, and I think I jinxed myself maybe in that, like, immediately after that, I'm more in the business than ever. Which, yeah, that's really it's one of those, like man plans and God laughs or whatever. But I mean, it's okay. Here's what I think I'm realizing is part of what's happening is because we're getting better at running the operation, we're going after some bigger projects also. And then the thing is, like, a bigger project requires way more project management, and we don't actually have any capacity in house to do like more complex project management, right? Like the vast, like 95% of our jobs are a day or less.
So I think about them as a novice over here. It's like you're mostly a residential tree care business.
Yeah.
So that means like smaller projects, smaller trees,
Yep.
smaller scopes of work, and high turn, high volume or
Yep.
higher. You're not a commercial, large jobs, large trees, complexity business. And
Yep.
those are run very differently in the fence context. And I just have to assume the same in your business.
Yeah, I think that's right. The one thing that's odd about it is that the size of trees are not necessarily that different. Because at least in Seattle, like oftentimes if a commercial development has happened, they've gone out of their way already to get rid of all the big trees, right?
Got it.
Like
Okay.
And so that's a little bit of the confusion sometimes is like a commercial job on a 2-acre lot could have less tree work than a residential like half-acre lot. Um, which is why we focus more on residential in general. But sometimes these larger commercial or residential jobs do come up. And so if they're both big trees and commercial, right? And now they're like, you can't drive on the grass and there's like irrigation here and like all of that stuff starts to pile up. Then you need, true project management, which is like, we just don't really need that in house yet, except for jobs like that.
Right. So how long will this job take? Like 4 or 5 days?
The one for the university, we have set up for 3 days.
Okay. So it would
Um,
be interesting as like a new phase, not division, but to be able to have enough like multi-day commercial quote, if anybody's watching, commercial work to be able to bring in like a dedicated commercial team or larger project team. That would be interesting.
Yeah, and I think there's an element of so like all of the crews now report to our operations manager, right? Whereas they used to report just to me, so I did all
Yep.
the daily firefighting. Now she does all the daily firefighting, but for these complex jobs, I'm way more hands-on now, because I have the bandwidth to be. So I'm sort of serving in that kind of project manager role until we're able to hire somebody there. It'd probably be like production manager, for lack of a better term, that would basically like all of the crews would report to them, and they would manage kind of some of the large scale projects when they come. But
So,
Flavia, as our ops manager, she doesn't have the bandwidth to be both ops manager and production manager and project manager, right? So I'm picking up the project manager piece of it.
so sorry, this is, again, we'll let the listeners, vote on whether this is useful, but it's fascinating to me. Is the bidding or estimating of these larger jobs more complex and require like a different skill set than a residential quote?
It's a little bit more complex. There's just more moving parts, right? Like if we need to rent a skid steer and then we need to figure out where to put the wood, like, and the wood is like a quantity that we couldn't just sort of give away. Whereas
Right.
a residential job, we might, yeah. So like the actual skill set of how long will it take us to remove this tree, that is sort of consistent, and any of our estimators could do that. But the project planning element of when does the rental happen, how much does the rental cost, where are we going to rent it from, how many, what driver do we need for that, like that element of the project planning is just not part of their day-to-day at all.
Is the permitting the same?
Permitting is, it depends, but
Okay.
honestly permitting is often easier because the commercial clients usually have already done the permitting cycle and they're getting the work for bid.
Got it. So, I mean,
Yeah,
like, long story short, there is probably less of like a, I don't know, systematic way to bid these jobs. It sounds like there's new considerations. There is actually probably a chance of you losing money on a commercial job if you bid it
totally,
wrong, as
totally.
opposed to like your tried and true residential tougher, like to
Yeah,
lose money.
I think that's
So,
right. And I think like this job for the university, I think we will break even on. I don't think
yeah,
we'll make money on it, which sucks given how much work the guys are putting into it, especially the the flip side, there's a couple flip sides, which is one, being in the mix on bigger jobs is just valuable from a like marketing branding perspective, right? Like we
yeah,
are working on this big campus job in the middle of Seattle that's meaningful, whether it's just the university staff alone is like a meaningful population demographic. And so maybe I'm doing some kind of mental gymnastics to, to like justify it. Um but yeah, I think that's part of it. I think there's an element with commercial jobs also that there will be repeat work there, right? Because they have a ton more trees to work on.
yep.
And so there's something to be said for like winning the lead job, the first job, and then hopefully getting the call from then after. Because then on the pruning, we can actually make money. And there's an element of like, as we're trying to scale, we do need volume, right? Like, I think we're probably like, yeah, we probably break even inclusive of our overhead, right? But we're probably gross margin positive on this job.
Yeah.
And so that matters.
So, net, like, there's probably like a whole conversation to be had here in building like a residential commercial, a hybrid residential commercial business.
Right.
And I don't know, I'm totally guessing here, but there's probably like a slower cash flow cycle on the commercial side.
Yep.
So you're probably going to have to sit on some AR for a bit. I'm guessing
Totally.
the dollars are bigger, so they move the needle. I
Yep.
don't have any sense for whether in your business, like the commercial margins would be higher or lower than residential, or maybe
I think it'd be
change
lower is
over.
the problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's where, like, for commercial work, you really need a crew. You need a project manager who can project manage well, and you need a crew that can really just attack. It's a slightly different style.
Yeah. And so you're going to be like net margin break even because of your time to play PM on this, or something else went wrong too.
Well, I know I'm thinking more of like the overhead allocation. If I were to do a true overhead allocation, across all of our jobs,
How do
I
you
think
do it,
we'd
by
break
labor
even.
hour?
I mean, I don't literally do it as a thing, so I'm
Yeah.
guessing.
Okay.
But no, I think in this case, part of a couple things that we missed are one, I think we underestimated just how intensive the cost to dump or to dispose of the wood is going to be. I think two, we underestimated just how long like the tree would take us with a crane. Like we really should have had a crane for like a day and a half, if not 2 days, as opposed to just 1 day. And so we needed to price that in.
Yep. Okay.
So yeah, it is what it is.
I'm not sure if anybody cares, but this experience is so common in like mostly resi businesses that then are trying to see if commercial work makes sense
Right.
and potentially create a hybrid business. Or like for us, the fence business that we acquired for PSG to start had been a residential fence business,
Hmm.
like in the mid-teens and older or before then.
Hmm.
And the pivot to becoming a commercial business is a huge pivot and has a
Yep.
ton of pain points, but in many ways can be just as or more valuable than a residential business, or maybe like the hybrid is the best approach. So
No, I think that's right. Like, I think what I'm trying, like, there are jobs that are big enough that they become a little too complex for most of the competitors here. And if we can price those appropriately and kind of cherry pick the actually good ones where the client understands kind of the level of care they need to be hiring for, like those are great projects.
sure.
Um, so I don't know. That it's still a work in progress. We'll figure out how these jobs should go. Because part of it is if we were to go after more jobs at this scale, we really should go spend money on some more equipment rather than trying to rent and make it work. But yeah, this is a pretty classic like residential contractor going bigger.
Totally classic. We just this past year tried to bring fleet in-house on some of
Mm.
that stuff, meaning like instead of renting,
Hmm.
buying or financing the equipment and then moving it around the country. So,
How's that going?
to be clear, I'm thankful that's not my job.
Yeah.
Uh, I think it's just proven to be hard. And like you can make incremental margin on playing your own Sunbelt rental, but be prepared for pain. This episode is brought to you by the Kalmar Group, a recruitment firm that specializes in placing leaders in the SMB community. Most small business owners treat hiring like a side project. Post on a job board, text a few friends, and hope for the best. But when it comes to leadership roles, hope isn't a strategy. The truth is, your people are your most valuable asset, and building the right leadership team requires more than luck. It takes a proven process. That's where the Kalmar Group comes in. They help owners like you find exceptional leaders in operations, sales, finance, and marketing, from managers to the C-suite, so you can stop guessing and start growing. Whether you're running a long-standing business or just acquired one through ETA, change is constant. Key people leave, new opportunities arrive, and when they do, the Kalmar Group is there to help you hire with clarity, confidence, and speed. You hire an expert for legal, bookkeeping, taxes, etc. So why are you flying solo on recruiting and hiring? With clients across the country and a track record of results, Kalmar doesn't just fill roles, they raise the bar for how you hire. Led by founder Dylan Scroggins, a 15-year recruiting veteran, the Kalmar Group exists to help business owners stop settling for good enough and start hiring the kind of leaders who truly move the needle. To learn more, visit thekalmargroup.com or connect with Dylan directly. More details are in the show notes.
Exactly. Well, so this goes well into the topic that I had in mind today, which is sort of working in versus on the business, which is obviously a popular topic for searchers. And a lot of searchers think about it when they're buying the businesses. Can they buy a business that will allow them to work on it? And I've definitely worked in the business a lot the last couple of years. Kind of only recently started to have more time to work on the business. But I was curious to kind of hear your definition of each term and then talk a little bit about, the pros and cons of like starting smaller and working in it versus on it from the jump.
Yeah, so I don't have a great definition. So do you mind if I just like riff or,
Yeah, riff,
word vomit?
please.
So I've only been able to experience the difference by having bought or invested in businesses that are clearly on one side or the other, where
Mm.
owner is very clearly not responsible for daily execution. I don't think that working on the business means you don't have to show up at the company. You can live many states away and it's passive income. I think those are different things. So let's maybe say that one more time.
Right.
Working on the business is not having passive income as the owner from a business.
Right.
So I think working on the business reflects that the daily business executes, everybody executes their R&Rs revenue is generated, projects are completed without the owner's involvement in that daily execution. That doesn't mean the owner doesn't have to manage the people who are running the daily business. Like your
Mm-hmm.
ops manager could not go forever without your management.
Mm-hmm.
But managing her as opposed to you managing your crews is, to me, like the difference between working in the business and on the business,
Nice. Okay.
or having the capacity to work on special projects like, being your own in-house digital marketing agency, or executing M&A on different add-ons around greater Seattle. Those special projects are like a luxury to be able
Right.
to have the time to work on those.
Yeah. No, that's right. I think maybe the one kind of within the pocket of smaller or special projects, part of what I think of as working on the business is you're working on systems improvements that allow the day-to-day functioning to get better or more effective or whatever over time, but you're not actually in the systems themselves.
Okay. I like that. And maybe for like EOS minded people, there is no seat on the accountability chart where you sit that is not, I guess, like the visionary or the integrator.
Right. Right. Like you're not, yeah, that's a little confusing. Like that you're not accountable for any day-to-day outputs.
Right. You're not accountable for like the three functions of a business, right?
What are the three
Oper-
functions of a business?
sales and marketing, operations, and back office admin, accounting, finance.
Huh. I've never heard it said that way. But
Yeah.
what about the
In
actual service? What is the service for? That's operations.
operations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got it.
I was talking about like in the accountability charts in EOS, the
Right.
three
Oh, I see.
functions. Yeah.
Okay. Are you
Anyway,
running EOS at PSG?
uh, yeah, I would say it's like a customized kind of lighter version, but yeah.
Sure. Nice. Yeah, because I think the part of what feels like working on the business for me now is, like we're going through our mid-year reviews right now. And so part of coming out of mid-year reviews is going to be like, hey, like what do we hear as feedback from our team to help us prioritize what, the next process improvements we're going to work on, whether it's on training or systems or what have you. And so like part of it is me working with the ops manager to kind of look at the feedback together and like kind of stack hands on, hey, these feel like the priority items that we need to respond to. But then also like me taking a couple of them as like my work. It's not just like I'm telling her like, okay, those are your priorities.
Yeah. And that makes sense. You're also like 3 years into this. It's not like you're 30 years into this,
Right. Right.
and you still have leverage on the business. So there are roles you still have to play.
Hmm.
So yeah.
And what do you think, when you hear a searcher say, I want to buy a business with established management so I can work on the business, which I feel like I hear that in every searcher call I have. Like, what's your reaction? Like, how do you answer that? Or what? I mean, they're not even really even asking a question, but like, what do you respond to
Well, I generally kind of chuckle and say, yeah, same here.
that?
But I think like, what are we asking about? We're asking about owner dependence.
Hmm.
Like I kind of coined this stupid term, like big 3 second two. And in terms of like when you craft your criteria for a business you want to buy, everybody always thinks about like industry, location, size. But in that sort of secondary questions, the one people like really fail to ask is, what does the owner do in the business today? What are the functions, the R&Rs the owner has? And can you successfully take those over or hire for them? And so I don't know, it's kind of how I think about it and how I try and respond to that question. Because if they are, for instance, like your owners were the technical experts in the
Totally.
business,
And service
and
providers.
and that is a significant risk. Like there is some there was owner dependency in Bluma, and
Oh
you
yeah.
had to replace that.
Yep.
So um, I think it's more about like defining the owner dependency and really being honest about that searcher's ability to play that role, especially if they're like a technical expert in the business. I think that's a challenge. I think we probably get into like what are the next question is like what questions do you ask to assess the owner dependency in the business?
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. Do you have some? I have a couple. They're not brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, what I will often do, like I kind of really go as like simplistic as possible. Like, how does this business make money? Right? Like, can you walk me through like when a customer calls the office, right, to like ask for whatever the next step is, like who answers the phone, right?
Assuming they
Who,
call the office.
yeah, like however they come in, right? Like that's exactly right. Like I start like at that basic, and I tell the owner, during those meetings, like, hey, look, like I'm trying to understand, like, there's not a right or wrong answer to this, right? I'm just trying to understand how does this whole business flow from like lead of some sort being generated to cash in the bank account somewhere down here at the other end. Um, and who on the team is doing which pieces of that. If I can map that out, like it's not you're not like asking the owner like, hey, how dependent is the business on you? Right? Like you're actually trying to figure out what are the series of systems and outputs and who's accountable for each one.
Got it. And by definition, which one of those are played by the owner and where are they, causing potential issues for you and having to replace them?
Totally.
Because your owners didn't give you that long. How long did they give you?
No, they did. The father did 3 months, but the son we agreed on 12 months.
I mean, it's not that long.
I guess it's not that long. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
got
true.
it. Okay, so and remember, like, and most people listening are going to be SBA loan buyers or buyers of SMBs with an SBA loan. So there's some time limitation on the transition. So like, call it whatever it is. It's still a relatively short transition. So
Hmm.
you do like it's a great idea to map out where the seller plays a role in different functions of the business because you're gonna have to replace them.
Right. And I mean, the other ones, I'm curious what questions you had in mind, but the other one always is like, when you take vacation, how do things work?
Yep.
Or have you taken vacation?
Yeah. So I maybe we all learn our lessons via like hard lessons. So most of my questions and experiences around like revenue degradation due to customers having there's some issue with revenue generation.
Hmm.
And so like the best example I always think about is there was a business we looked at that was almost 1 million of SDE and probably could have traded for like 2.5 times,
Hmm.
which every wide-eyed searcher would say that is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So we went on a ride along with him, and I enjoy going on half-day ride-alongs. It's really time intensive. Like it takes
Hmm.
a lot to invest in that, but look at things like the frequency with which they respond to calls from customers and their office. How much of the revenue is coming through like text messages to the owner from customers?
Hmm.
Have the owner drive you to customers and say, "Hey, I'd love to just go see some of your best customers." The seller's going to take that and hear, "I have something to show off about." The better the customer, the better they know me, the more kind things they're going to say about me, the better. Really what it's revealing is how important the relationship potentially is between important customer and your seller. And
Right.
when the communications are coming through their cell phone, nothing happens. There's like they play the cog in the wheel of like revenue coming in between customer and office or a
Right.
decision making point between office and field labor. You've got a pretty big problem on your hands.
Totally. Yeah. Because luckily, when I bought Bluma, I will say what they had done well is that customer communication point did not go through these owners. It went through the office. Now, they were the people who showed up and gave the quote, and they were the guys who showed up and did the work. So that's a huge part of this, obviously.
Yeah.
But they had at least figured out the front end of the funnel,
Okay.
which is
So
meaningful.
leads came in and didn't go through them,
No,
and they didn't schedule the estimates. All they did was show up and execute them. And
correct.
then they showed up and actually did the service.
That's right.
Okay. So there was some risk that like the people who saw their tree care service on site would think about it as your seller's name's business.
Yes. No, and so that's actually, I also did a half day ride along with each of the sellers. And I did it specifically for when they were doing their bid routes, like going and visiting a bunch of clients to give quotes. Because that's what I was curious about, right? Is like when they knock on the door at somebody's house, even repeat clients, is the client like, is the first thing they're saying like, "Hey, great to see you, seller," like,
Yeah.
I've been a long time, whatever, right? Like, is that the dynamic? And the dynamic I read, which I think has borne out, is they trusted the sellers, right? They like respected the sellers, but it wasn't like they're like buddies who, that's why we use them for tree work. Like, it wasn't like the two sellers were these like incredibly charismatic salespeople, right? Who are just like charming everyone into buying their tree work. So I came away from that being like, hey, like, if we just put respectful and knowledgeable arborists in front of our leads, like that's what the leads are looking for. They're not looking specifically for Martin and Josiah.
Okay. So that's how you went about identifying the risk. That's great.
Yeah.
It's not, by
Though
the
that
way,
could
like
have been, I could have been wrong. Yeah.
right. But like this, everybody looks for a silver bullet in terms of like how to identify the owner dependency risk. I just have never found there to be like a single question, a list of questions. Um, the tactics are not so clear. Like this is why diligence is hard and easy to miss and takes a lot of time.
And assuming, like for the listeners who are gonna buy SBA sized deals, right? So generally under 1 million of EBITDA or maybe 1 million at the most.
Yeah.
Are there ever deals have you seen or have you backed any deals where it really felt like the searcher from day one was able to work on the business?
Yes. One.
Really? Okay. Oh, okay.
So I'll probably be giving up the who just by describing the story, but
Yep.
I think it's useful because it's a really good question to ask in diligence. For the 1 out of 50 that the answer is yes. But the question is, do your sellers live in the same city or state as the business?
Hmm.
Because the answer for this business was there were two, and neither lived in the same town as the business.
Wow.
And so what that meant is like that physical separation, by definition, removed the seller's importance to a lot of the decision making. What was interesting is when the second of those two sellers to leave the town of the business, when it happened, revenue started increasing pretty
Mm-hmm.
meaningfully, which it
Mm-hmm.
was fascinating. And they had two managers at the time we closed on that business, one overseeing the business, like the back office. I shouldn't say back office because it was both sales and the back office, and the other was in production.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, I think, the only time I've ever seen that similar dynamic play out. It's really hard to find.
Right. And so, in terms of people hoping to get deals done, the reality is like the vast, vast majority of folks are buying a business where they are going in day one and they are replacing the owner as a key cog in the wheel somewhere.
Somewhere. Yes. Maybe
Right.
not as important to the business they're looking at as your sellers were to yours, but
Right.
definitely somewhere. Yes.
And is there, like, how do you think about as an investor, like, what is too owner dependent, right? Like, when do you get comfortable? Like, hey, I think the searcher can, plug in the gaps, or where do you say, like, this is a bit too much?
Uh, so it's always like case by case, but like maybe the best example is in a technical business. where there's something technical estimating, technical something
Mhm.
where like being the expert, being the firefighter who helps the other technicians with their technical questions, that skill set is so far beyond the expertise of the searcher. They
Right.
could never fill that role no matter how long they spent in the business.
Yeah.
Right. So tree care, like it's a trade, but it's not like, I don't know, let's pick something highly technical commercial HVAC with boilers. And I don't know, I'm just
Mhm.
kind of speaking out of line here,
Yeah.
but I think we get the point, right? Where that seller's role was to be the technical backstop for all the folks in the field. That would be
Right.
super hard to replace.
Yeah, that's a great point. Where, right, the one where is the field techs every time they get stuck, are they calling the seller to problem solve? Whereas, at least in the tree care industry, you can generally hire climbers and arborists who can do a lot of that problem solving themselves.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
That helps.
And I help a lot with problem solving, but the problem solving I help with is more like project management. It's not ever like, how do we get this tree down? Like, I'm never helping them with that.
It's navigating all the other stuff.
Exactly.
Got it.
No, that's interesting. No, it's a tough one where, because I think so many searchers are focused on the idea of, hey, I want to go work on the business. I want to build a business. I don't want to work in the business. The sense I get sometimes is that they look, and I think I was guilty of this as well, to be clear. I think they view the owner dependence that they're stepping into as sort of a transitory, like necessary evil, as opposed to like the stuff that you have, like the core thing that the business does.
This episode is brought to you by Aspen HR. Are you sick and tired of dealing with rising health insurance costs? Did you just acquire a business and discover the employee handbook hasn't been updated in 5 years? Do you think there is an opportunity to make your payroll process more efficient? Or are you tired of dealing with slow responses and payroll errors from your current vendor? If you want to professionalize your HR, benefits, and payroll function, reach out to Aspen HR. Run by a former searcher, Mark Sinatra, Aspen HR is the white glove PEO for search operators. Email sales@aspenhr.com today. And for our listeners, Mark will offer you a complimentary HR due diligence assessment. And so, like, just to be clear, what you're saying is when you sign up for buying a small business, you shouldn't look at it as a temporary role you're playing. You should look at it as a forever role. You are the owner, which should be akin to you are the primary operator.
Right. And I'm sure at some scale that changes, but that scale is like quite a ways away. It's not like a couple years away. And like, I've definitely spoken to some searchers turned operators who have gotten there faster than I have, for sure. But I think there's something to do with also just kind of how much you want the business to operate a way you want it to. It just requires you to be that much more involved, right? Like, we're now at a point where, if we cause some sort of customer damage, like, I don't have to be involved up to like some dollar amount, right? And that dollar amount has gone up with each year. Like, as each year's progressed, like, more people on the team are empowered to solve the problem up to a higher dollar amount. And but it's still like, there's still a dollar amount that comes to me, right? Like,
Sure.
that doesn't ever, like, I don't think that'll ever change until, I don't know. I actually don't know when that would change.
So, what comes to you? Things like bad reviews, injuries on the job site.
Yep. Yeah, bad reviews, injuries on job sites. Most customer complaints are managed by our ops manager now. It's really, sometimes it'll be, if anything, it's more just doing a quick brainstorm with them where they come to me with like, "Hey, this is how we plan to handle this. Are you aligned?" And I'll generally say yes. So that's
That's
awesome.
great.
That's way better than it used to be.
Yeah.
um, but no, the ones that still elevate to me will be some of the more complex projects around how do we actually manage, because our operations manager, like me, is not a technical expert in tree care. And so she's actually like, it makes almost more sense for me to take on the weird exceptional stuff and for her to stay focused on the like core work,
Yep.
like she's more effective at that. And then I can be more effective at the weird edge cases of project planning. But we've sort of learned that over the last few months. I mean, anything related to like if our trucks crash, accidents, stuff like that comes to me. Um, and then most of the personnel side for the crew is like the small personnel issues that every crew like trades company has is managed at the ops manager level. I am still involved in the, hey, like, what is the career trajectory for this person? Like, I still know every person on the team and like where they're at in their career.
How many people are on
I
your team?
imagine that'll change. Uh, right now we're at 22.
Okay.
Um, and so, I mean, I will say something new this year for the first time. We've hired a few people that I didn't interview,
Ooh,
um,
that's
which
neat.
is kind of wild. Um,
Yes.
and they're relatively junior, entry level hires. But honestly, like, I think there were probably better hires than the folks I was hiring entry level. Like, I don't think it's not like that's one an area where I don't think delegating has made us any weaker. I think it might have made us stronger because the person who's making that hiring decision feels like almost more, under the gun, whereas like it was one of like 100 tasks that I was managing.
And to be clear, the people doing that hiring now are probably highly trained and trusted by you.
Totally.
So no need to micromanage that.
No,
Why did you
exactly.
decide to take over like lead generation?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, to
Was the
me,
KPI suffering? Like, is that like the broad answer? When you manage your business to leading KPIs, when
yep.
one starts to suffer, you dig in and try to resolve a problem. And this is just one of those problems.
A little bit, but more. I mean, so like, I think yes is the answer to that, where I think our lead generation was fine, but not great relative to our ad spend. And so like something there, it just hasn't gotten enough like focus. But I think the other element of it is like, there are so many downstream impacts of not having enough revenue, right? That like, even if there are 5 high importance operational changes we need to make, like the reality is we just need to be a bigger business before we can afford to make them.
Yeah,
And so like even if lead gen were spinning perfectly, like it would still be the most important lever right now, in terms of moving the business to the scale it needs to be.
got it. And is lead generation done on the commercial side differently?
We have no we don't have a commercial lead gen system yet,
Got it.
um, of any kind. Like we don't do anything outbound. So that's all kind of open. I mean, we even like we don't really bid on any RFPs we get sent either. So that's all sort of up for grabs.
Okay, cool.
Um, we bid on a couple, but like if they're really chunky, but we don't really. But the vast majority we don't. But the like getting dialed in on the advertising, to me that feels like the key. Like we've grown revenue, 20%, and our like revenue and our ad spend now as a percentage of revenue went from like 6.2 down to 6.0, which is tough because normally your ad spend gets worse as you grow. Um, so that feels good. That feels like, hey, like we're starting
Really, as a
to
percentage of sales, it increases?
I mean, it depends on the business, but basically over time ad spend reduces in effectiveness, like your dollar, right? Like because you're using your most effective channels and you're moving to less and less effective channels. And so like I've often heard in like the home trades, like if you're in growth mode, like you will often be spending at the 10 to 12% range.
Wow. Holy
Um,
cow.
yeah, and to be fair, like we have the benefit of having a large repeat client base. So like, if I'm not sure what our mix is right now, but if our mix is, call it like 2/3, repeat, 1/3 new, and we're spending 6%. So for that 1/3, like we're actually spending like 18% of revenue on the new.
Yeah, your CAC is probably making that first project for that new customer far
Yeah,
less profitable than your blended P&L shows.
exactly. Exactly.
But
But you're
if
winning them.
your LTV is, if they're a repeating customer, your long term like LTV pays out, so it's worth it.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so that's
Cool.
where I've actually reduced, or I have not tried to qualify leads very much, because those LTVs can really change and like be surprising. Like we had a lead I remember that came off of a mailer, like a direct mail thing that, the cost per lead for those was like pretty high because like almost nobody responds to the mailers.
Yeah.
And the lead like initial was like, hey, like he wants to take out this tiny little tree, and he's like at the very edge of our service area. So it was just I remember because the arborist who was going out there complained to me being like, why are you sending me out to like look at this one tree? And I was like, dude, he has a huge property, just go take a walk, like see how it does. And so like that first job would have been, at a $500 minimum at most. And like and that was like 2.5 years ago, and he's spent over 20 grand with us now. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. Yeah.
And so that's where it's like these residential clients, it's surprising, right? Like because they're looking for high quality tree care, the high end homeowners. And so the potential like LTVs on a even 2 to 3 year basis can be north of 10K.
Wow. Can I give you an example that we had in the dumpster business a handful of
Yeah,
years ago?
sure.
So we were a dumpster rental business, a broker, not a hauler. So we didn't own any dumpsters or any trucks. We would essentially be a lead generation business. We would touch the customer. We would take payment on credit card, and then, you know, theoretically turn around, pick up the phone, call the hauler. Hauler would deliver the dumpster. And then we wouldn't pay for the dumpster in most cases until the dumpster was picked up by the hauler. Then they would invoice us. So it was like a highly negative networking capital business, which was beautiful.
Yep.
And new leads were generated almost exclusively through PPC.
Right.
So Google ads. And so we would track our spend. And what was fascinating is the spend would be like very consistent each day of the week. So Monday is very high, Friday is very low, kind of tick down throughout the week. And what we would do is blend the PPC cost over every rental. So, let's say we spent $1,000 on 10 rentals. So, $100 a rental, that's bad math. 20 rentals. So $50 a rental, more accurate.
Yep.
So that's how we would do our math. What we didn't realize until we got into the business is we were spending all that PPC on new leads. It was CAC for new leads.
Right.
And almost all of not almost, but so much of our revenue was like a turn where a dumpster would get taken away and replaced. So essentially a repeat revenue situation from an existing customer.
Right.
And so the math that we really whiffed on was that there was zero cost to that change out.
Totally.
And we were spending all of that PPC on the new leads to generate a potential repeat customer.
Yep.
And so it totally changed the way we thought about CAC because it was way higher. We were losing our can, pun intended, on all those new leads.
No, I'm having the exact same experience with Google PPC right now, where we finally have good enough lead attribution that I can actually figure out what leads came in truly through PPC and then track it to revenue. And like, I'm like, based on the last couple of months, I don't think we're even covering revenue on our ad spend, let alone margin.
Right.
And so like we have LTV on those, so like who knows, maybe it'll be okay, but still it's not where I want to be spending money. Like I would rather spend money on things that like we have some channels that will actually work. Like direct mail seems to work better.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't know where we were supposed to go with all this. We kind of went down a rabbit hole, but it's fascinating.
No,
These are the things, maybe this is the point too. Here we are on whatever day of the week it is, Tuesday, talking about random topics like this. And if fundamentally you don't enjoy the exercise of going down these rabbit holes, being an operator will be a slog.
Totally. And the real problem is like, I mean, at least like PPC and like figuring out our ad spend, that's like interesting computer work, which a lot of people coming from into search is like they're probably wanting to do interesting computer work.
Yeah.
The harder stuff is like, I mean, man, I like yesterday just sort of convincing the guys that like, no, let's keep pushing, like let's get through, like we got to get this tree down. Convincing, the crane guy and the wood haulers and the like moving brush myself for a while just to help out. Like that's like not fun in a different kind of way, unless you really are excited about it.
Totally. I remember in a totally different business, and I won't name it because very clear which one, where I remember on a few big jobs that when we showed up, we realized we way underbid it and we were going to lose our butt on that job. Feeling the need to personally self-perform along with the crew
Totally.
to minimize how much you were going to get crushed.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like, okay, like if I can like cut like 7 man hours because I'm out there, like worth it, right?
Or like if you're in a job that you bid as a 1-day job and if you have to go into a second day, another day of equipment rental, another day of like, dispatch and drive,
Yeah,
commute, like you go from slightly profitable to losing your rear end. You do
totally.
whatever you can to make it finish by the end of the day.
Totally. I mean, luckily on this one, I gave our crew leader, me and him walked the property and we agreed on like, hey, Monday's going to be a long day. Like we're going to get this one big tree down so we don't have to bring the crane back. And so he knew going in. So like it was a long day. Like he got in the tree at 8:30 a.m. He came down for like lunch at 12:30 and then he got back in the tree and did not come down until 5. Right?
Oh,
So right, like he was just doing it, right? But like if he was mad at me, he didn't show it, but because at least he like kind of knew going in, like, hey, this is the plan for Monday.
so what Kostov is going to do is he's going to take some of those Amex points from his PPC spend
Right.
and go buy, a gift card and say thank you.
Yeah. Man, I don't even have Amex points. I have all of that just sitting on Capital One cash back that I'm
Okay.
gonna now use to offset some of this month's like cash outflows.
All right. Can I ask though, when you do
Yeah.
that, you're essentially paying tax on your points, right?
I don't know. Is that how that works?
Well, if you take your cash back and it
Yeah.
just writes off some tax, ordinary, necessary business
Oh,
deductions,
sure. Sure. Yeah.
then you're essentially paying tax on your Amex points or your Capital One points,
Yeah.
as opposed to like if you can do other things with them that don't pay for personal travel or
Yeah. This is
get
my
gift
like,
cards.
I don't know if I'm being too much of a fiduciary or something, but I felt kind of guilty if I got personal points on business spend because I have investors.
Shit. And I'm one of them. So now I
And you're
feel
one of them.
conflicted.
So that's where like I've had it in my head that I'm gonna save the cash back and do some kind of like just team party, like basically something
Yeah.
for the business.
Yeah. Okay.
But if like cash gets tight, I'm like, maybe like we should just use it in the business, right? Like, um, but so
Check,
that's why I'm saying
please.
like I don't actually have any points for myself at all out of the
Yeah.
business. But once like preferred capital's returned, then maybe I'll change my tune and I'll get a card that I can actually travel on.
I'm here as your co-host, not your investor. So let's be clear about where
Fair
our
enough.
positions lie. But last episode, we had a conversation with Palmer Higgins at Chemark.
Yep.
And similar to the conversation we had with Chase Murdoch a few weeks before, we got to hear somebody else's experience who got into this, in his case, with the specific intention to run multiple small businesses. And I think they came to it with like an investor's mindset and less as an operator's mindset. But he talked a lot about having been in his businesses too, and not just on them.
Yeah, I was impressed. I mean, I knew a lot of the story, but and the Chenmark story is pretty well known.
Yep.
But I think getting into the weeds and just hearing a little bit about, how did that day to day actually feel for him was illuminating and honestly made me feel a little bit better about, the like, why does this feel so hard to me? And it's like, no, it just is hard.
Yeah. And it's hard no matter kind of what background you have. And I think what is really clear is the trifecta of him and his brother and his sister-in-law all being together.
Hmm.
It probably at the beginning was much maybe more stressful because they knew they had to buy 3 times as much whatever EV or revenue or
Right.
even whatever to make the economics work in the long haul. But they had so much extra bandwidth. I bet I don't know, cuts a couple ways. Like they could do more, they could move faster. They had, probably better vibes at the beginning because they could help each
Hmm.
other out instead of being a solo searcher.
Absolutely. No, I think like every incremental data point I hear keeps leading me back to doing search as a partnership. If you can find a partner that really works for you, um, I think the upside of that can far outstrip, having your economics.
I agree.
Yeah.
And then it was also interesting. I think I knew this, but he kind of reminded me through his stories that they started with the strategy of backing a seller. So their seller at the beginning was going to be who operated.
Hmm.
And so in many ways, kind of more of a sponsor model or a private equity model.
Yep.
And then they had a failure on their first one. And so they pivoted to something else, which is to recruit an outsider to be their operator. That failed. And they went back to good old fashioned ETA, where one of them, and now I guess 2 out of the 3 of them have operated their portfolio companies.
Hmm.
So it's like a really interesting transition and kind of hones back all the way to ETA, which is fundamentally the difference between ETA and like independent sponsorship is who the operator is.
Yeah, I think the order is still, in terms of like where the scarcity is, it is first really good operators, then it's really good deals, and then it's capital.
Yeah, agree.
You
But
have to solve all three, obviously, but yeah, if you don't have the operator plan really dialed in, like even a good deal goes sideways.
yep. And I don't know, there's that saying about that Warren Buffett says about like the nature of operators and industries and the quality of them. And the quality industry always is what ultimately dictates outcomes. I think I disagree a little bit in small business land. I think
Mhm.
the operator fundamentally can move the needle. Yeah, period.
Totally.
Yep,
No, I mean, I think when we're talking about big public companies, then yes, right? The macro environment just drives so much of the outcome. But in these tiny micro businesses, yes, obviously you're still driven by the macro, but the like kind of leader induced volatility can be way higher.
agree.
Well,
All right. Well, we are going to give you a break since you spent a lot of time in Bluma the last few weeks and not relitigate our activity tracker,
thank you.
even though I want to.
Man, mine's been rough the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, but you're going to have a dozen points from this like last 2 days alone. So
That's true.
you'll be fine.
That's true.
All right. We will wrap it at that. Thanks for joining the intentional owner, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you.